The night before her wedding, Freya received a simple dinner invitation that felt warm and welcoming. But what she discovered at the table would make her question everything she thought she knew about the man she loved. My name is Freya, and I am 25 years old. The day before our wedding, my fiancé sent me a message that seemed simple, almost ordinary. I was sitting on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by wedding boxes, ribbons, and the soft white dress hanging carefully near the window. My phone buzzed, and when I looked down, his message appeared on the screen. My mom wants you at dinner tonight. At first, I smiled. It felt like a sweet gesture. The night before the wedding, dinner with my future mother-in-law sounded like a warm tradition, a way of welcoming me into the family. But something about the message stayed in my mind longer than it should have. Maybe it was the suddenness of it. Or maybe it was the quiet feeling in my chest that something about this evening was going to be important. Still, I replied, yes, of course, I'll come. By evening, I drove to their house with the golden sunset stretching across the road. The neighborhood looked peaceful, almost too peaceful. His family home stood at the end of the street with soft lights glowing through the windows. When I stepped out of the car, the smell of herbs and warm food drifted through the cool air. My fiancé opened the door with a big smile, kissed my cheek, and pulled me inside like nothing in the world could go wrong. His mother greeted me politely, the way she always did, friendly, but with a distance I could never quite explain. Freya, she said gently. I'm glad you came. The table was beautifully set, more elegant than I expected. Candles flickered softly, reflecting off the glasses and plates. For a moment, everything felt perfect, like a peaceful pause before the happiest day of my life. We sat down and dinner began. The conversation was light at first. My fiancé talked about tomorrow's wedding schedule, about the guests arriving in the morning, about the music and flowers. His mother listened quietly, occasionally smiling, occasionally studying me with a look I couldn't fully understand. I tried to relax, reminding myself that tomorrow I would officially become part of this family. But as the evening continued, something subtle began to feel strange. Small glances passed between my fiancé and his mother across the table. Not obvious ones, just quick looks, like silent messages being exchanged without words. Once or twice, they leaned closer and whispered something I couldn't hear. I brushed the thought away. Families had their own habits, their own little ways of communicating. Still, the feeling lingered in the back of my mind like a quiet question waiting to be answered. By the time dessert arrived, the candles had burned lower and the room had grown warmer. We laughed about small things, about childhood stories, about the chaos weddings always bring. Then, suddenly, near the end of the evening, something happened that made my heart pause. My future mother-in-law leaned toward my fiancé and spoke softly in a language I didn't expect to hear. It was smooth, flowing, and unmistakably Italian. I looked up quickly. My fiancé responded to her immediately, just as naturally, just as fluently. The two of them exchanged a few quick sentences in Italian. Their voices were quiet but relaxed, like it was something they had done many times before. Then they both laughed, not loudly, but enough for the sound to echo strangely in the quiet dining room. My heart gave a small, confused thump. In the 2 years we had been together, my fiancé had never once mentioned speaking Italian. Not once. I had even asked him before if he knew any other languages, and he had casually said no. Yet here he was, speaking it perfectly with his mother as if it were completely normal. I forced a polite smile and kept eating, pretending nothing had happened. But inside, my thoughts were spinning. Why hide something like that? And why did they suddenly switch languages at the end of dinner? A few minutes later, the evening started wrapping up. His mother gathered the plates while my fiancé stepped outside to take a phone call. I stood up to help her carry dishes into the kitchen. The house felt quieter now, almost tense in a way I couldn't explain. She washed the dishes slowly while I dried them beside her. Neither of us spoke for a moment. The silence felt heavier than it should have. And then something happened that made the entire evening replay inside my mind. She looked at me, studying my face carefully, almost curiously. In that moment, the words from the dinner table echoed again in my thoughts. At the end of the evening, my future mother-in-law had said something in Italian to my fiancé, and they both laughed. The sound of their laughter still lingered in my memory. I placed the last plate on the counter, turned toward her with a calm smile, and gently took my mother-in-law by the hand. Because before leaving that house, I needed to understand exactly what had been said. And deep inside, a strange feeling told me that whatever I was about to discover might change everything about tomorrow's wedding. I was still holding her hand when the silence in the kitchen grew heavier. The warm light above the sink reflected in the clean dishes, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. I looked at her calmly, but inside, my heart was beating faster than I wanted to admit. That moment from the dinner table kept repeating in my mind. At the end of the evening, my future mother-in-law said something in Italian to my fiancé, and they both laughed. The laughter had sounded small, but it carried a strange weight. I finally broke the silence with a gentle smile. "I didn't know you both spoke Italian," I said quietly. She paused while drying a glass and looked at me. For a second, her expression didn't change, but then her eyes narrowed slightly with curiosity. "Did that surprise you?" she asked. I nodded lightly. "A little. In 2 years, he never mentioned it." She placed the glass down and folded the towel slowly, as if thinking carefully about her next words. "Well," she said softly, "some things don't come up in conversation." I nodded again, pretending to accept that answer. But the truth was, something deeper was bothering me. My fiancé had never been the kind of person to hide things. At least, that's what I had always believed. Just then, the front door opened, and his footsteps echoed through the hallway. As he walked back inside after finishing his call, he stepped into the kitchen with the same relaxed smile. "Everything okay in here?" he asked. His mother and I both looked at him. For a brief moment, the three of us stood there in an awkward triangle of silence. Then his mother said casually, "Freya was asking about the Italian we were speaking earlier." The smile on his face flickered for a fraction of a second. It was subtle, but I noticed it. "Oh," he said quickly, leaning against the counter. "Yeah, my mom and I used to speak it when I was younger." I crossed my arms lightly, still smiling. "That's interesting," I replied. "Because earlier, you told me you didn't know any other languages." He hesitated. It was the first time all evening he looked slightly uncomfortable. "I guess I just never thought it was important," he said with a shrug. But something in his tone felt rehearsed. The kitchen grew quiet again. His mother glanced between us nervously, then suddenly said, "Well, it's getting late. Tomorrow is a big day." My fiancé nodded. "Yeah, we should probably get some rest." But before the moment could slip away, I spoke again. My voice was calm but firm. "What exactly did you say to each other in Italian at the table?" The question hung in the air like a suspended thread. My fiancé looked at his mother quickly. She looked back at him. That same silent communication I had noticed earlier passed between them again. Then he laughed lightly. "It was nothing," he said. "Just a small joke." I tilted my head slightly. "What joke?" He hesitated again, and that was when I decided to stop pretending. I took a slow breath and looked directly at both of them. Then, in clear and confident Italian, I said, "You asked him if I still didn't know about tomorrow. And he told you not to worry because I had no idea." The effect was instant. My fiancé froze. His mother's eyes widened in shock. The kitchen fell completely silent. "You understand Italian?" he asked slowly. I nodded. "Enough." His mother sat down heavily at the small table, clearly stunned. My fiancé rubbed the back of his neck, trying to gather his thoughts. "Okay," he said finally. "I guess the surprise is ruined." "What surprise?" I asked. He looked at me with an awkward smile. "Tomorrow after the wedding, we were going to tell you something big." My heart beat faster. "Tell me what?" He exhaled and spoke carefully. "We're moving to Italy." For a moment, I didn't react. The words felt unreal. "Moving?" I repeated. "Yes," he said quickly. "I accepted a job there a few months ago. It's an incredible opportunity. My mom helped me arrange everything." My chest tightened. "You made this decision months ago?" He nodded. "I wanted to surprise you tomorrow after the ceremony. Imagine it, new country, new life, adventure together." I stared at him. "You planned my entire future without asking me." His smile faded slightly. "I thought you'd be happy." I looked at both of them standing in that kitchen, realizing something important in that moment. It wasn't the move itself that hurt. It was the fact that they had decided everything for me and laughed about how I didn't know. I picked up my purse calmly. "Freya, wait," he said quickly. But I walked toward the door and turned back one last time. "Thank you for dinner," I said quietly. "But tomorrow, there won't be a wedding." His face went pale. "What?" I met his eyes steadily. "Because the person I marry will be someone who makes decisions with me. Not for me." The house was silent as I stepped outside into the cool night air. The stars above the street were bright and clear. And for the first time that evening, I felt something unexpected. Peace. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from the life someone else planned for you and choose your own path instead. The drive home was quiet, my hands steady on the wheel. Sometimes the most important decision you'll ever make is choosing yourself over a future someone else planned for you. If you enjoyed Freya's story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales.